Okay. Perfect. Okay, sorry for the delay, guys. Again, just getting used to this software. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just get the presentation up and then we'll make a start. Okay, so thank you everybody for your attendance. Today we're going to focus on what to do prior to an interview. Last week we went over the full process, all 10 stages of this course. The reason we did that was just taken from the feedback to try and help you guys kind of watch the whole thing, have an attempt to try and do every step, and then these sessions are going to be a little bit shorter, just breaking down each learning on its own merit. So today we're going to look at what to do before an interview. Next week we'll go over what to do during an interview, and then the week after we'll go through what to do after an interview. So there's a few steps. A lot of the time, especially since the pandemic, you're just not going to be meeting clients face to face as often. You're going to very much need to get used to other means of interviewing. What I mean by that is over Zoom, over Skype, over meetings, over all these different things. So previously we would always say, well, why don't you print a couple of copies of your resume and take them along with you to hand out. It's more of a backup, really. You should expect your clients to have a copy of your resume, but just in case, it's always good practice to have one with you. But at the same time, if your interview is an e-interview, so if it's online, then it's probably good practice to send a copy of your latest resume, and if you've got a cover letter, then obviously send that through to the person that's interviewing you, so that they could potentially have your resume open on another screen. So you're just trying to be as accommodating as you can for the interviewer, making sure they've got everything to make an informed decision on yourself. The second step is make sure that you research the business in who that you're interviewing with. It's really important this stage, regardless to the level of the role, regardless to whether it's 1 hour a week or whether it's 40, doesn't really matter. You always need to make sure you've done the research on the business. So don't just think that going on the website, reading the About Us section on the website is going to be enough. Make sure that you have a look on the social media platforms that business is doing. Have a look at more recent news, or have a look at what are they posting on their platform. So a good place would be LinkedIn. Is the one thing I always tell everybody to do in these sessions, because I think it's hugely important. But follow their page on LinkedIn if they've got one, or have a look on maybe Facebook, or just Google the name of the business and see what comes up, because often you could be interviewing with a business and then something groundbreaking might have happened just 2 days prior, and this has happened to me on a number of occasions where I've gone to meet an ASX listed business and started the meeting, and they're horrified or they're embarrassed about something that's come out in the press, and if I wouldn't have looked online to see what was in the press, then I wouldn't have a clue what they were talking about, and I could look like I was disinterested in working with him, which wouldn't have been accurate, So it's really important that you do that. There might not be anything on there, and that's fine, But what it will do, especially if you look at the social media channels, you'll see that you'll get a feel for the business and the values and the culture of that business. It's only going to help you in your interview and give you something to talk about. So research the business is really, really important. The third step here is know the interviewer. I think this is really important in the sense that we live in an age of technology. So if you've been given confirmation, or you know the name basically of the person that you're interviewing with, do a Google search, their name and the company that they're working for. Have a look at their LinkedIn profile, follow them, add them as a connection. Just do a real quick search on Google. What you often will see is there might be something that's on the Google that isn't obvious. So an example might be, I remember meeting a client very recently who'd done a huge cycling race for charity, and the charity in question we ended up speaking about, for the majority of our meeting. Now, to be able to find a middle ground in an interview scenario is a really good thing. An interview is a very surreal time in your life where you sit down and you literally tell people how good you are. You don't tend to do that as a general rule in life. So if you've got any kind of information on the interviewer, or you can at least say, I noticed that you started your career in Z company, now you're with Y company, what drew you here, that type of a question to the interviewer will warm the interviewer up, and it's just easier for you to perform and build that relationship if you know a little bit about the interviewers beforehand. So that's a really good research tip. And then step 4 here is prepare questions. So the first thing that we'll go into it a little bit more in depth in a moment, but the first question that most interviewers are going to ask are, what do you know about us, as in the organisation? So if you haven't prepared an answer for that, you probably should. And then likewise, have you got any questions for me or for us if it's a panel? Will be asked to you very regularly in an interview. So you don't really want them all written down, because that's going to look like you haven't got much of a clue about the organisation or what they're trying to do. If you're passionate about business or an opportunity, you should probably know a little bit about it. It's like anything. If you're passionate about, flower arranging, then you probably know what flowers are in season or whatever that might look like. So prepare your questions and make sure that they're really relevant to the role. So a question that I use quite often would be, what would the perfect candidate for this role look like? What are the values, or what does the culture look like for this business? What is the, so if it's a technical role, what exactly are you hoping to achieve by bringing somebody into this role? And another one might be, interviewer, you've been very successful with your career, with the business. If you could ask yourself, advice. So if you could give yourself advice on your first day of starting with this business, what advice would that be to be successful with this business? That type of thing. Obviously, you've given it a bit of thought. It's going to go down very well, because what the interviewer will instantly think is, okay, this person is thinking outside the square and they're looking at this role for what it is, and rather than, please give me a job, I'm desperate type of questions. I can start, I can learn it. That's not where you want to be. You want to be a bit more thoughtful. So do prepare your questions, and again, like I say, with all of these tips, make sure that you run them by people and see what their thoughts are. That all feedback is good feedback. You don't have to take it all the time, but do share these things with you, with your network. Make a positive first impression is the fifth one. This is really important. I've read lots of stats. I mean, what psychologists are basically saying is people have already made their mind up within the first 4 to 10 seconds of meeting someone. I think that's a little bit extreme, but first impressions are very important. So put your best foot forward. So if you've been working in an organisation, then maybe you don't need to be clean shaven, maybe you don't need to wear your smart press suit or whatever that might be. But if you've never met a person before, go in clean shaven if that's what the look you go with. If you go with a beard, trim your beard, whatever. If you're female, you're obviously not going to have the beard issue. But yeah, just try and put your best foot forward. And it's the eye contact. We used to encourage everybody to shake hands with people on the way in. This has all been turned on its head with the introduction of the Zoom culture, if you like. So I think just making sure that if you are doing an e-interview, just make sure that you're in an environment that's conducive to being successful. So if you are struggling to find a space that's quiet, then maybe have a think about where you could go. Is there a library room that you can go into? Is there one of the centres? Have they got a space for you to go in for half an hour, whatever that might be? Think outside the square. There's nothing more annoying than interviewing somebody and they just, you're on their smartphone and the smartphone's going all over the place, and it's just not a good look. So always make sure your first impressions are strong. And then practice. Go through an interview scenario. Ask your loved ones, your friends, or anyone in your network for that matter, to run through an interview with you. Maybe someone in the centres could help you with that. The reason we do that is because you're never going to sound perfect. You can over practice your interviews. Hi, I'm Karl. I have 1.3 years experience in so-and-so, that's not really going to be conducive to being successful in an interview. So it's kind of looking at, okay, how do I talk about my experience? How do I put that into a few sentences? And just, practice a few times. It will help you when you are in that scenario. And arrive early if you are arriving at all. If it's online, just don't be 2 minutes past the agreed time and still not be in the room or whatever. Make sure you test that stuff, and don't be afraid to go in 5 minutes early if you have to. Just make sure that you're available at the time, because it's punctuality. If you can't get that right, the faith of the business having in you to be able to work diligently goes down. Okay, so we're going to go into these in a little bit more detail. I'm just going to skip through this one because, again, I don't think it's relevant. When we say research the company, there's 5 key areas that you might want to address. This could make things easier for you. So, is it products? Is it products that their business do? If so, try and learn a little bit about the products, or at least have a feel for what they are. If it's a services business, have a look at what services, where are they, what could affect their success as a business. What industry is the company in? How's that affected? Is there any for example, agriculture? There's a lot going on in agriculture right now. Try and just have an overview and have a look at what's going on in that industry. Who are their customers? And again, like I touched on before, what is the company culture? So what I mean by company culture is what is it like to work in that environment? What is the environment like? Is it a type of organisation that's set up for people to work from home remotely and there's not much team action? Is it a sales environment where it's a lot of pressure on numbers and dollars, or every company's different. So to learn about and to research around the culture of a business will stand you in very good stead. So again, know the interviewer, just like we mentioned before. Look at their background. So you can find this out usually from looking on their LinkedIn profile. If you can't if they're not on LinkedIn, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. It's just something that you can ask around. But if you do some searches on a name and an organisation where they're working, 9 times out of 10 something will come up from their past that could be relevant, could be interesting. If they are on LinkedIn, which is your preference, then you've already got a record of their employment history, their education, and maybe there's something on that profile that you might have in common. That might be a contact, it might be that you both support a charitable organisation, it might be you went to the same uni, it could be anything. If there isn't anything in common, no problem. Have a look at what their interests are. If they all of a sudden, if you read on there that one of their interests is swimming, then maybe have a think about, what do you know about that subject? Is there any common ground there that you can bring up? Oh, I notice you follow the swimming. Oh yeah, I'm not much of a swimmer, but it's something I've always liked, wanted to do, or something along those lines, just to build that rapport. Okay, prepare questions. So use the information you've gathered whilst researching the business and the interviewers. Mention the fact that you did a search for the answer, and ask questions to show you did your homework. I found ABC at XYZ. Are there major competitors for your business? How are you planning to beat them? Might be a question. Don't have to all use that now, but just trying to encourage you to think out the square, or think of types of questions that you could use. Another one might be, I noticed you studied at ABC. What was your favourite subject, or which campus did you attend, or whatever it might be. What you really want to do when you're leaving the interview is for them to say, yes, this candidate can do the role, or no, they can't. That's up to them to decide. But what you must have as a goal is that they leave the interviewing process, whether it be an room or a physical room, with that person would fit in our culture, or that person's a nice person, that was an enjoyable experience. The way that you can increase your chances of them thinking the latter is to think about these things, prepare those questions. It's going to make things run a bit smoother. And also, when you're asked, do you have any questions for us? Say, yeah, I have actually. I've got a lot. Why don't I start with these ones? Inquire about things you could not find information about. That's a really key point that a lot of people miss out on. It's normal for you not to find everything. So if there's any gaps in your knowledge about the business, you want to make an informed decision to want to join this company. So make sure that you go through that. So, example, I was looking at the company's About Us page on the website, but could not find how you engage with the local community. Another one might be, according to your LinkedIn profile, you did ABC role at XYZ. I wonder what made you change to this one. Not make you change, I apologise. So these are engaging questions, and something that's clearly shown that you have done your homework and you are interested. This is something that you're really interested in doing, and you're trying to put your best foot forward. That'll always go down well. Make a positive first impression. So again, if the business is a financial services business based in the CBD, you're probably going to want to wear a shirt and tie. If this company is a cafe on the corner that's really, really casual, dress accordingly. Look smart, casual, but try and mirror what your interview is going to look like. If you can find out from their website and publications, great. If not, just ask them. No harm in that. So a question might be, what's the expectation with dress code? I just don't want to come in either under or overdressed for you guys. That's always a good conversation starter. If you're still not sure, it is better to overdress rather than underdress. So when I say overdress, I don't mean wearing 1,000 clothing items. I mean, dress more corporate than not. Clothes could be the deciding factor for similar candidates. So what I mean by that is if I've got one candidate who comes in with ripped jeans or just generally hasn't taken very good care of themselves, they just maybe haven't washed properly. I don't know. They just don't look very corporate. And then I've got somebody else, same skill set, same personality, same everything, but has clearly made a huge effort. That could be the deciding factor on my decision, which seems preposterous, really, but that is the kind of decision making you've got to do when you're interviewing, unfortunately. So my posture right now is very relaxed. I don't mind a relaxed posture, but not to the point where I've got my feet up or I'm one of these type of thing. If I'm in front of a client or if I was a candidate in that scenario, I would tend to put my arch right to the back of the chair and try and remain the eye contact and not slouch like I naturally do. Eye contact's key, and when people are speaking, zip it. You've 2 ears and 1 mouth. Try and use your senses in that ratio. Make sure if people are if they're talking or they're explaining, try and get the eye contact and make the impression that you're following or you're interested. So or something along those lines. If you really are nervous, then just think power pose all the time, and that can help you out in that scenario. There's a slide here on handshakes. You're probably going to do the elbow or whatever you do these days, but if it does happen, make sure that you're confident. A firm handshake, and say your name. So, hi, Karl Rowlands, or whatever is relevant. I don't know why it shouldn't be a thing, but it is a thing. When you are giving somebody a handshake, if it's just like they've just put their hand out and doesn't really send the right message, especially not if they're wanting to be a go-getter and join your organisation. So just be mindful of that. Make a positive first impression with an elevator pitch. Again, I've seen people go over the top with this kind of thing. It's important to know kind of the environment you're interviewing in, but generally, you want to go through either your education or your experience, if you've got experience, what your achievements are. That could be in life or professionally. What your skill set is and what your knowledge is. So maybe have a think about that. Knowing how many years experience you've got in total, or so, just little things like that. It's good to have. So we say elevator pitch. For you to practice more than anything, just so you're comfortable speaking about yourself. Not everybody is. Okay, so your practice that you can do before an interview would be to record yourself on camera. I've done this a few times, and if you like the sound of your voice, then I find that quite strange, because most people don't. So don't worry if your voice doesn't sound pristine. It never usually sounds good to your own ear, but the main reason for you recording yourself on camera is for you to kind of put yourself in that mindset and that scenario, so when it does come, you're kind of a bit more prepared, and also to have a look at your body language and just how you're answering questions. It's easier sometimes to be a critic on something that you can see rather than criticize your performance from doing. They're two very different things, so well worth a shout. If you're not fortunate enough to have a smartphone or a camera or whatever that might be, just stand in front of a mirror. It does exactly the same. And then also try and practice with your friends or loved ones, just to give yourself more peace of mind and that confidence moving forward. Obviously arrive early again if you are going to the actual physical address, which is happening less and less these days, but if you are, really plan to get there 15 minutes early. You don't have to go into reception and tell them that you've arrived 15 minutes early, because that probably won't go down very well, but don't be afraid to check Google Maps in advance. You can literally, Google Maps these days is amazing. You can do the street view, and then you can drag your little person all the way down the street, so you familiarise yourself with landmarks, so on the day you've kind of done it. Even if you've done it online, you've got a clear idea. Allow extra time for service fluctuations. So what I mean, if you're going to catch the bus or the train or ferry or whatever you do, expect there to be delays. Don't think it's going to run smooth and I can get there within 2 minutes and I'll make my... what'll happen. You'll get there and something will be delayed or something's closed, and you made a rod for your own back. So make sure you check. And then again, if you drive, and make sure that there's parking and make sure that the traffic's there. A few references there that I've used for this, but to be completely honest, I think the main thing from preparing for an interview is just getting to know the interviewer and the business and the opportunity that you're interviewing with, and to be seen, to come across, to be knowledgeable and obvious that you've done that research. It is a little bit different these days with body language, but I just feel that if if you've got to be doing this over Zoom, then it's going to be a little bit different. But the rules generally apply. Personally, I would think you're at an advantage if you're doing an interview with Zoom. A lot of people say that's not the case because you can't eyeball people and pick up those softer skills, which I accept. But for the candidate, it's way better because you can have post-its all over the wall behind the camera to give you cues, so it actually makes the whole thing a bit easier. May I wish you all the very best of luck with everything. Thank you again, everybody, for your attendance, and I'll see you same time next week, and we'll be talking about what to do whilst you're in an interview scenario. So I look forward to catching up with everybody then. You take care.